What's up, everybody? I'm Shane. You're watching Treasure Train.
Program Manager for BLM in California. And the goal tonight, as you've heard, is to give you guys a little bit of background, a little bit of information, and to give an ask. An ask being, what are your comments as far as what we're doing, the efforts that we're going forward with, what we might not go forward with. So that's all about scoping. That's why we're here tonight, and specifically, as everyone knows, Desert Renewable Energy Conservation Plan, the land use plan amendments underlying it are what we're here to talk about. So my intent tonight is to figure out how to use it. Yeah. My intent tonight is essentially three things. I want to say where we've been, where we are, and where we may be going. So starting off with where we've been, in 2016, BLM signed the record of decision amending 3 land use plans in the desert area. The first one that Jerry mentioned, the California Desert Conservation Area Plan of 1980, as amended many times, as well as small portions of the Bishop Resource Management Plan, as well as the Bakersfield Resource Management Plan. And for those of you that were part of the original DRECP process, you guys all understand that the DRECP, the intent was 2 equal goals. One was to support the streamlined development of renewable energy in the California desert, as well as providing conservation to protect multiple uses. I did it again. All right, so I want to talk about the planning area. I'm trying to step away from DRECP in the concept. The concept of DRECP was a larger scale collaborative plan, which BLM plays a big role in, and we've identified and adopted our portion of that larger plan in this planning area. So I'm just trying to lay the groundwork for where we are today. Where we are is the planning area that we're looking at. It's approximately 22 million acres of federal and non-federal land. That is within mostly 7 counties, plus a small portion of Mono County. Come on, get it right this time. Yep. All right. So what we're focusing on are specifically the 11 million acres of BLM managed public land within that area. So the main focus that we're talking about right now is one of the goals of the DRECP was streamlining renewable energy. Our existing plans allow for 2 areas where renewable energy has been identified as something that can occur there right now as exists. The first are development focus areas. Within the desert, we have 388,000 acres that we have identified for streamlined renewable energy development. We have the ability to streamline the process both from a NEPA perspective as well as from an Endangered Species Act perspective for those projects that go in those development focus areas. The second area that we identified as part of this was approximately 40,000 acres of variance process lands. Those are areas that we said are suitable for renewable energy development. However, there is additional work in siting that may be required to do so. So while there is some benefit in those 40,000 acres, it is not as great as the benefit to be achieved by renewable energy developers in the development focus areas. Now, existing, we have approximately 6.5 million acres identified as conservation. The conservation on the ground consists of the California Desert National Conservation Lands, areas of environmental concern, as well as wildlife allocations. Now, some of these were existing prior to DRECP, and some the DRECP plan amendment put in place. So as a whole, the current landscape is approximately 6.5 million acres. And the important thing to note there is we identified these lands for the conservation of ecological, historical, as well as cultural and scenic or other values. Also on the landscape today, we have approximately up to 4 million acres that we're managing with a recreation focus. Within these areas include open OHV, what BLM has identified as special recreation management areas, and extensive recreation management areas. One thing to note for the special and extensive recreation management areas is that's a land allocation that BLM has called out to say these areas are important for recreation. You know, whether it's a focus that we do things there for recreation or we acknowledge it with other uses. But the thing to understand with those 2 designations is those are all sorts of recreation. That's off-highway use. That is bird watching. That is hiking. That is camping. That is things that people want to do across the desert. And the current baseline as well for minerals and mining is the existing plans recognize the importance of our high potential mineral areas. We specifically called out 9 areas of utter importance. In addition, they allow for access to mineral resources while providing, to some extent, or as best we can under applicable laws and regulations, the protection of our natural resources. So the final thing about our current condition that's important to note is under our last plan amendment, we worked with tribes and other consulting parties in an effort to streamline our undertakings in regards to National Historic Preservation Act, specifically the Section 106. We currently have an agreement in place that outlines a consistent process for how to permit renewable energy projects across all BLM offices in the desert. The important thing there is it also identifies a specific schedule and a time frame for how we're going to move forward. One thing that's really important to notice is kind of where we are right now in this process. This is an ongoing process. So when it comes to our consultation with tribes under our government-to-government consultation, that's an ongoing thing. As well as what we've done in the programmatic agreement is we committed to develop a sensitivity analysis to identify those areas that, as it lays out, are more sensitive to impacts from development in the desert, as well as the development of a mitigation fee program for the cumulative impacts to these resources. About kind of what started, why we're here. You know, as everyone is aware of, and those that aren't, here you go. California, the state of California is originally mandated 33% and is now up to 50% of California's energy supply resources will come from renewable energy. As we worked on implementation of the plan, you know, granted it's pretty new, it's a year and a half since signing the record of decision. We've been approached a couple of times by industry, you know, as far as some concern with their ability to develop even within the development focal areas, renewable energy projects, given some of the other constraints within the plan, some of the other management actions within the plan. So that's got BLM thinking that, you know, there might be some things we need to take a look at. In addition to that, in March of 2017, one of the executive orders that came out directed the federal agencies to look at all of our actions, all those actions that could, as it was put, burden the development of domestically produced energy resources. Now, in that case, it was to some degree focused on regulation, but at the same time, it was also addressing policy or management decisions. So in our case, we're looking at our land use plan. You know, so as part of this, it's take a look to see what might hinder or impede growth in development areas. In addition to that, recently, in discussions with agriculture in rural communities, the president had a concern about the ability for rural communities and communication, specifically broadband and other communication efforts like cellular. So we're also under that purview kind of needing to take a look at, does this plan as it is allow for these developments that have been identified as a priority for the president? So those lead us to our notice of intent, which, as those of you have seen it, published in February 2nd of 2018. And what that did was it essentially kicked off the process we're here today for. It noticed that BLM is looking to possibly amend those 3 land use plans that underlie the original DRECP land use plan amendment from 2018. Specifically, we asked for comments, as you see up there, on the potential impacts that the land use designations may have on these items of interest, which would be renewable energy, as well as how we could increase the opportunities for multiple use on all our public lands. So scoping. Why are we exactly here? The purpose of scoping. Scoping is where you guys first have the opportunity to engage us. It allows you the ability to share your concerns and your issues about renewable energy and multiple use on BLM lands within that area that I identified, so our planning area. You're invited and welcome to share your concerns and provide information and identify the issues that need to be addressed. And based on all the information that we received from folks during this scoping period, we're going to possibly propose a land use plan amendment. So it's the information you provide helps us identify how we move forward. As Jerry had mentioned, as Katrina had mentioned, it is helping us frame what BLM might propose to do from here on out in this process. The scope and size of the amendment, whether it's narrowly focused, whether it's wider focused, what's included, what isn't included, that is important. That is what we want to get from folks. Now, related to that, with the scoping comments that we received, just so folks know the process, we'll receive those comments and we'll put them together in what we have as our scoping report. The scoping report is what lays out the comments that we've received and the direction we may go. If BLM is proposing to amend our land use plan, I just want to tell you the steps so you guys know just roughly the steps, so you guys know where future public involvement and engagement occurs. So the first thing we do after the scoping report is we formulate the alternatives and incorporate the public comments. We would evaluate that. We release our draft plan amendment with the associated NEPA document. And at that stage, we invite and allow for public comment. We then will take those public comments, make any changes that we deem appropriate or necessary based on feedback from that draft, and incorporate it into our final. So here's our proposed plan amendment with our final environmental analysis. And from there on, there's governor consistency review to ensure it's compatible with the state's desires or the locals, as well as, and then finally we'll publish a final decision. So this is really what I'm after today from folks. Dialogue is great, discussion is great, back and forth, understanding of where we are, where you are is great. What I am really seeking from folks is scoping comments. Scoping comments, we are looking for written comments. And what we really would like is we would like these examples, this sort of answers of, first one, a big one for us is whether and why. I'm going to read this. To amend some, none, or all of the DRECP amendments to the CDCA, the Bishop Resource Management Plan, and the Bakersfield Management Plan. So help us figure out what it is that we are amending, if we are amending something. I'd like to see identify issues that could warrant the plan amendment to look at improved conservation or to develop efforts or multiple use opportunities. Or so increase development in certain areas or expand multiple use opportunities in others, or to increase conservation. And also define the planning criteria we should use. So again, what should be in it, what should be out of it. For instance, certain areas should not be included in this, certain activities should not be included. Right now, it's kind of, we're using this to, as Jerry said, kind of figure out how we are moving forward. What are we looking at? What are we not looking at? And also important that the 2016 amendment relied on a lot of data and information. There's stuff that's happened since then that if anyone has new information, new data, please let us know and identify that. So after we receive the scoping comments, I just want to let you know what our intent is with the scoping comments other than the scoping report. We identify and put them in three broad categories. One is the issues that we need to look at in a plan amendment to address, so change our plan. The other are issues that we could resolve without changing the plans. So implementation actions. So does BLM and can BLM California adjust our policy or other actions that we do? How can we implement the plan to better address these concerns without having to change the plan? That's one of the categories we'll put comments in. And the third one are things that are outside the scope of the planning area. So if you're looking to change something, in one of our other areas, or something not related to this plan at all, or something that's outside of BLM's authority or our jurisdiction, those are things that we do not consider. So submitting comments is kind of my final step here. Again, it is really important that we have the comments you guys will submit in writing. Now we have a few different ways you can submit them. Again, you can do it before you leave today. You all have comment forms that you could write something down and hand it in. You can email the comments. There's a web address that we've set up to receive emails specifically for this effort. And that is on the screen, but it's also on the handout for effective scoping comments that you have. You can submit electronically. We have an e-planning page set up that you can actually go in and directly enter your comment. The last option is to mail them. You can mail them to the address that's on the scoping cards, as well as the address on the handout. The note again, because this is still important, is comments must be, I keep hearing this changes, submitted by March 22nd. So if they're mailed, they need to be postmarked by that date. So with that, I will turn it back to Karen just to give us a quick direction for our breakout.